Hello, viewers, and welcome to the Team VVV Podcast, where we discuss all of the latest racing gaming news. And again, I'm joined by Kevin.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about all the racing gaming news. Again, it's been a couple of weeks since our last podcast. So we've got 2 whole weeks of news to catch up on. So we'll be going back a little bit, catching up, and then answering many of your questions that you've been firing at us over recent days. So catching up then, one of the first news stories from a couple of weeks back was the announcement that, of course, Dirt Rally 2 will support VR on Oculus Rift, which came as a welcome announcement to Oculus Rift fans. Obviously, it won't be supporting PSVR, and it doesn't officially support HTC Vive, which is a shame. I know some people say, well, you can use Revive, third-party piece of software, but it's not the same thing. It doesn't support HTC Vive. That's a shame. That's a bit disappointing, actually. But either way, VR progress has been made, and racing games on the PC with VR really are very special, even if the resolution is still a bit low at the moment to fully appreciate it. Moving on, I guess we've also had Monster Energy Supercross 2 released as well, and we've had, of course, a team chat on that, and myself and Kevin, we've had a good old natter about it, and of course you'll find Kevin's review on the website there as well. So we've been over these things, Kevin, already, and I guess next up, really, Need for Speed 2019 game looking likely on the website, which we came up with a couple of weeks ago. Some chat on the web or on a EA press release that a new Need for Speed is on the way. Bit of an odd slip up from EA, that is, to announce a game that's not actually officially announced. Bit of a strange way to do it. Bit of a mess up, frankly, putting that on there. Need for Speed. It's a franchise that has been good or rubbish in equal measure over the years. Recent years have gone way downhill, and it's reached a point where we literally don't even get review copies now. It's literally reached a point where EA are just embarrassed by it, these last couple of games that have come out. We wait and see whether they can turn it around with a franchise. But we have no information yet as to what this new Need for Speed will be and what they're using as a reference to develop it. And I think that's one of the most difficult things with Need for Speed is that it doesn't really know what it is or what it wants to be. And that's been one of the big problems with Need for Speed. It doesn't know where it's going as a franchise. People keep talking about Need for Speed Underground 2 as if it was a good game. Yes, it might be in your, child eyes. Yeah, it wasn't a good game. It had a lot of bugs. It was completely broken online. By today's standards, it was a terrible game. And personally, I found it mind-numbingly dull, and I found the music incredibly repetitive. There was that one piece of music that used to play over and over again in it, and it just riding in the storm or something. I can't remember what it was now, but it was awful.
Sounds a bit like V Rally 4 menu music.
Yes, V Rally 4. Just like the V Rally 4 menu music, you need to turn that off. One track. Oh, it's awful, wasn't it? Oh, I couldn't stand it.
This statement from EA, I mean, there's a bit of ambiguity in my opinion. Many press outlets have jumped on this and stated a 2019 release is coming, but it doesn't necessarily say that in the press release because there is some ambiguity. It's open to interpretation. So I guess the press are jumping on the 2019 date because it does mention the word 2019, but it doesn't necessarily apply to a Need for Speed title if you look at the way they've worded it. And I believe the wording's on the it's on the website there as well, the quote, so you can actually check it out for yourself and let us know what you think of it yourselves. But it could well be early 2020, a new Need for Speed. So I wouldn't quite rule it out either because we know nothing about this. If it's going to be 2019, we expect to hear more about this at E3. But like you say, Need for Speed recently has sort of lost its way. It's hard to actually know what a Need for Speed title is because it doesn't really have a set identity. Because I mean, the early days they were very much going for simulation. We've seen that change completely now, and it's gone in different directions. We've had Need for Speed shift titles that are going for the racing scene. We've had Pro Street again, which is like street racing. We've had Underground. We've had Most Wanted as well, which is a game I'm actually currently playing, Most Wanted 2005. on the Xbox 360 just
Yeah.
because I need to know what a good Need for Speed was like, because you forget over the years.
Need for Speed Most Wanted, I will just say, it had very jittery graphics. The frame rate wasn't solid at all.
Yeah.
But it had some really nice graphics, though. The buildings, the structures, the look, the feel was really amazing at its time. But I don't know, it was just so compelling. You would learn the map until you knew it like a cab driver. And when they say, I want to go to this location, you drive there, you knew exactly where you were going. And it was very varied in its own way. And you also knew where you could lose the cops as well. And
Yeah.
I just, whether it's an underground car park or there's a bit where you could jump on some buildings and the cops would all crash around until they lost you. But it was great. I mean, the police car chases were great. Everything worked in a way that should work. The cops on Need for Speed 2015 would lose you after 30 seconds. They literally couldn't stay with you. It was a total mess.
It was awful, wasn't it? And in many ways, Need for Speed Undercover actually took quite a bit from Most Wanted, in my opinion. You had quite a few similar elements there across the board, but I don't know. I mean, the recent Need for Speed titles, I used to get excited about a Need for Speed title, and I just don't anymore.
No,
it's the way it's gone right now.
It's going to be. They're not. The last. I got to talk about Need for Speed 2015, but to hear them say, "Oh, it's not got manual gears and it doesn't support steering wheels." No, in this day and age, with the eSports market and the steering wheel market and the driving experience that they have, but that's not our market. And I think they're really trapped that they had this success on this game in 2004. They don't know why they had this success, and there were various reasons for it, like little on the market at the time to compete with and stuff like that. And they've lost what made Need for Speed successful. And I think Most Wanted 2005 captured a lot of things very well. But remember that and Project Gotham Racing 3 were probably the only two driving games worth owning on the Xbox 360 for 2 years. So there wasn't really anything else to buy. And since then, EA always like to bring in a new USP every year. Like, we need a new thing, whether it's some stupid new skill you can get as a player or jumping car skill or whatever it is. We've got new car cam, new in-headlight car cam, new, whatever it is, eyeball cam. It's something new. This means you can see the road like never before. It's got to be something stupid that they had in there rather than just building on what it should be. What do we want Need for Speed? We want cool cars that you can upgrade. We want to be able to drive those cars and enjoy that and have races. Or we want the option of do street racing, and we want the option of then cops as a strategy tool. Not cops immediately chase you, but you can slow down, cruise past a cop, carry on again, get to location without being spotted and stuff like that. There's loads you can do with
a
story element.
Well.
Yeah.
Like in like Most Wanted, you had like speed cameras, you had different types of races, you had these sort of toll booth races where you make the checkpoints. Just a bit of variety, really, because with the modern Need for Speed, I just feel that there's too much of the same all the time, and there's not enough variety. I mean, even in Forza Horizon 4 for me and 3, there's not enough variety there. No. Games like Test Drive Unlimited actually had more interesting things to do because they had that variety.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know, if it just seems to be giving you less and less as titles go on.
Yeah, it needs to understand its identity, and they need to lock that down and build on it. And that was what the plan was supposed to have been in 2015, and it didn't happen. I don't know, like many games companies, when you give them feedback that's not, "Oh, your game is incredible, it's amazing," they just don't talk to you again. They think, "Oh, no, too critical. We're not going to listen to Team VVV." And I think to myself, "Oh dear, I'm sorry. I said it should have manual gears and a steering wheel compatibility." But that's the way it is these days. These days, EA make a game. They say, "Right, it's coming out in February. What if it's not finished? Too bad. All the rest goes in the DLC pot. We'll find a way to charge people for it, and we'll pay some big YouTubers to tell you all it's good. That will convert the masses, and then they'll release it, and that'll be that." And everyone goes, "Oh, new Need for Speed, it's amazing," when it's actual trash. And then after 6 months, it's like, "That Need for Speed was a bit rubbish, wasn't it?" "Yeah, but you all bought it." And then we start the whole business again. I think Need for Speed, they need to understand what they want to do with it long term. And I don't think EA have a clue. What they've shown from the last 7 years of Need for Speed is that since Need for Speed, what was the one in 2011? Hot Pursuit, was it? Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, I think it was, which I think was the last really enjoyable one. I quite enjoyed the run for what it was worth.
Yeah, I enjoyed the run. It's very shortly lived. It's like 4-hour campaign, but it was fun while it lasted.
It was fun while it lasted. So there's been elements in Need for Speed games, but no, it's a bit like waiting for the new Star Wars film after The Last Jedi. Do you care? Not really. Should you care? Absolutely, but you don't really. So we'll just wait and see what happens there. But that's Need for Speed. Need for Speed. Next up, we've got Project Cars 2. They've got their own eSports competition there, €20,000 prize pool coming in. That's nice if you're into the whole eSports thing there with Project Cars. Spending a bit of money
prize
there.
money, because if you remember back to the farming eSports farming simulator, that was €250,000.
Wow, there you go. Puts it in perspective, doesn't it?
It
chump change, yeah, exactly. The chump change Project Cars 2 competition. It's when you put it. The problem is, what happens is when they have a competition and they say $20,000, people think, "Oh my God, you can win $20,000," and then you say first place gets $5,000 and second place getting so on. Or they have teams, they have team competitions. By the time you split it between a team, that's £800 for you and £600 for you. So you need to work for 9 months to earn £500 if you win. And if you come in fourth place, well, a pat on the back, well done, off you go. It's never as much money as people think it is, especially when it gets spread out.
Yeah.
Project Cars 2 esports competitions, always fun. Love a bit of action and some cash in your pocket. Have a bit of fun. There's always going to be a serious guy who's going to be quicker than you. You know it. Right. Euro Truck Simulator meets Jalopy in Transmission.
Yeah. So this was the title I come across recently.
Yeah.
It's just a very unusual title. It's almost like a very sort of laid back experience. You have this synth wave music. You have these sort of hypnotizing visuals, these striking colors of oranges and purples. And it's such an unusual game. So I thought I'd whack this on the website. It's currently scheduled for a Q1 2020 release. So it's, still a year or so off release. But I just thought that it was something that caught my eye, something original for the most part.
Chilled cruising game.
Yeah, it is. It's a funny.
Do you know, it kind of reminds me of that ghost driving game we looked at about a year ago.
Yes, I can't remember the name of it
now. No, ghost driving game, but it was a ghostly world you were driving in that looked amazing at the time. I looked at it and thought, wow, that looks stunning. It was. I mean, that's kind of like vaporware anyway. It's been in development forever, but it does kind of remind me of that.
Yeah, and it's
very cool.
Mid-80s as well. So it's you have the old 80s boxy cars, like you got a car here that looks a bit like the Mark 1 Golf GTI, and it just has a nice sort of vibe about it and feel. And I don't know, it was just something interesting to keep an eye on. So do keep an eye on Transmission, see how it develops on Steam. It is a PC only game at the moment. We look forward to seeing how that develops.
Transmission, one to look out for there. I'll definitely keep an eye on that. Quite like the look of it. Other news, just non-racing, but with wheels. We have Big Ben, of course, acquiring the publishing rights for Tour de France and Pro Cycling Manager. That'll be interesting to see how Tour de France converts as a game.
I can't say I've played a cycling game for a long while. So typically in these sorts of games, you have like a stamina bar that you'd mash the button to expend the stamina, and then you have to sort of let it regenerate. So I don't know how entertaining they can get these games, because it is a very tricky one, isn't it, to get right? But I don't know. I mean, visually, if you can get an environment looking good, you're sort of halfway there to making a believable experience and just getting the gameplay down, sort of slipstreaming elements, leading the peloton, when to push, when to hold off, hills, hill climbs and downhill sections. If you can get these elements right, it can be, I guess, quite an entertaining experience. But it's just one of those games that are more sort of laid back, that has a very niche appeal, I'd say, and unusual sort of game. But it's nice to have a range of different racing games on the market, and no doubt that Tour de France fans will be very excited by this news. Not just one game, but two.
Yeah, well, interesting to see. A game I did enjoy. I remember there was a couple of cycling games for the PlayStation 1 many years ago, but I
Yeah,
can't remember what they were
there
called.
was Courier Crisis,
Yeah,
where you had to drive around the streets, and I can't remember much about it, but it
there
was
was a
entertaining.
downhill. There was a
Downhill
downhill.
mountain biking game as
Yeah,
well. Yeah, that
yeah,
was
and I
pretty
remember it being a lot
all
of
right.
fun actually
Yeah,
because you
yeah,
had to sort of pump the pedals in some way and let the bike run through corners and you know how do you convert
exactly.
cycling
Yeah.
to a game
Mm.
in a way that
I
feels
mean,
natural?
the old
Otherwise, you
arcade
end up
game.
with otherwise you end up with like a Flappy Bird on bikes where you're pumping the bike and then you're not, and you're pumping and
Yeah.
then you're not.
I suppose to get the true experience, you would have some sort of pedal bike setup, like you used to get in the arcades. You get prop cycle. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah,
You had
yeah,
some cycling involved, and they were interesting for what they were. I mean, there are titles on the market that introduced these sort of physical controllers that you have to pedal and stuff. So who knows what they can do with a game such as this? But it's as a potential training aid for fitness and stuff. It does have a lot of potential there.
yeah, yeah. I think certainly there's potential, but we'll see
Bit of
how that
VR.
goes. I do look forward to that. Seeing how they put it together. Pro Cycling Manager, depends. I mean, that's going to be like Motorsport Manager type thing. You're going to need to be into that
Yeah.
sort of thing. But moving on, Assetto Corsa Competizione update delayed for change of content. What can you tell us about that, Kevin? What's the
So originally, I think it was it was the Honda NSX that was supposed to be parts of the 6 update, which was swapped out for the Nissan GTR Nismo. So instead, the NSX, sorry, is coming as part of the full release, which is expected in the next month or so. So just have to wait a little bit longer than that. So it's only a car that they swapped out for the 6 update. So next update is the full version 1 update, which still has a Q1 release. So that would suggest before the end of next month. So we won't have long to wait to see Assetto Corsa Competizione come together as a full package, and it'd be interesting to see how that actually is with all these sort of various online elements tested, with decent numbers. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, interesting. We'll keep an eye on that, of course. Assetto Corsa gradually developing, but still way to go yet. Next up, we've got Ride 3 DLC pack. Tell us a bit about that, Kevin.
Yeah, so this is actually the 4th free DLC pack now. So they've been releasing these packs often quite stealthily. I find they just sort of appear on the PlayStation and Xbox stores. Even without a tweet sometimes from Milestone. So they're sort of putting these out there. And as has been the case with these free packs, you get a free bike as well as an additional career mode volume, which comes with 5 events. So they're fleshing out the career mode with every release of a free DLC pack. So I'm not sure if they've got another one coming. I cannot actually think off the top of my head, but it's nice to have additional career mode events, much like you're getting in like GT Sport. They're updating their careers, which is only something we've seen recently with games. It's always something that I've wanted to see for many years. Of course, it wasn't possible in the older times where you couldn't update games, but certainly in today's market, you can have that flexibility where you can add bolt on things to the career mode and just sort of flesh it out over time. So it's good to see. And of course, we're not going to turn our nose up at a free bike as well. So yeah, it's just good. It's good to see Milestone supporting their games post-launch more and more with every title, it seems, with every major title at least anyway. So, but I was a little bit underwhelmed with Ride 3 to say the least as an overall package. It didn't tick all the boxes for me personally. We do have the review up on the website as well, so you can take a few minutes out of your time to check that out. But I'd recommend Ride 3 on a sale at the moment. I wouldn't pay full price for it certainly, because it didn't really add too much onto what we already saw with Ride 2, which was very good. I might add.
Yeah, it's different. It wasn't the bike game we were hoping it would be.
No,
we really thought.
Well, a bit like Dirt Rally 2. It
Yeah.
had amazing potential, but it didn't quite fully realise that. So
No, didn't realise all of its potential. Absolutely, like you say, very similar games in that way, aren't they? It's very frustrating, I think, when you have a game that's got so much potential and it just doesn't quite match that potential, which is a bit of a shame. But moving on, we've got KartKraft Kart Sim.
KartKraft, yeah.
Kart Sim is a different game.
No, I believe Kart Sim was KartKraft. It became KartKraft a few years back.
Yeah.
And I believe this is like a one-man developed title. At least
Initially, it was.
throughout the majority
Certainly initially.
cycle.
Yeah. And it's been the game was made and then sort of cancelled and remade several times, and now it's getting good reviews on the PC. We haven't received a copy to test it out yet, but it's one I'd definitely like to try out at some point. But it seems to be getting good reviews. They're working well in terms of developing the physics, and coming to console tells you they've definitely got some financial support now to develop it further. Great potential for it, actually. Again, it's one of those that if there's the right amount of cars and tracks, if they've got some kind of eSport and online features in place and it all works well, it's got good potential. And so I look forward. Graphically, it's really impressive for what I've seen on the PC. Sometimes it almost looks like a photograph, photographic. It looks so real. It looks like real video footage.
Karting is so hard to get right. I mean, we've seen it in Project Cars. We've seen it in GT6. And it just seems to be one of those disciplines that's notoriously hard to get right. So let's hope that KartKraft can get it mostly right, at least. And it's very good again to see it coming to consoles, because we're seeing it more and more, aren't we, with the release of Project Cars initially, and Assetto Corsa and games like that to follow. Really opens up the consoles as a viable platform for sim racing. And I wasn't expecting a game such as KartKraft to ever grace the consoles, I must admit. I thought it was a little bit too niche, or perhaps the budget might not have been there, but like you say, it looks like they've got some funding here, so it'd be lovely to see this on the consoles. Q3 this year is the release window so far, so hopefully it all goes well with development, and we'll be seeing this on the PlayStation and Xbox One.
I look forward to that, actually. I think that'll be again, it's got a nice market of its own, no competitors. Good to see a bit of originality coming as well. Now we've also seen the Dirt Rally 2.0 Season 1 content roadmap as well. We can see on the site here, which lays out the plan. Obviously, we've got Citroen and Skoda. Well, Kevin, you take us through this, your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I was actually surprised seeing this, because I figured the Season 1 content would be lumped, like one big lump of content. To see it spread out as thinly as it is surprising. I mean, this dates from 12th of March is your first piece, up until 21st of May. So you're going to be waiting probably well into June for the second season of content. But the first season is mainly, it is completely rally focused. So you have Monte Carlo Rally, as well as Sweden and Germany, which are all returning from the first rally game, albeit sort of brought up to date with the latest physics, deformation, graphics and audio, lighting, engine. So it's going to look very good. It's going to look amazing. Hopefully it can get it as good looking as the base tracks in the game, the new tracks, and that'd be fantastic to see. But again, it's paying for old content, which of course is rubbing people the wrong way, understandably, because it's nothing new here in terms of tracks. Okay, there are a number of cars. I'm not quite sure how many are new to the series. I assume they probably, most of them are. I mean, seeing the M1 Pro car rally car there is, I think it's making its debut, isn't it, in the racing game? So that's good to see. But it's as far as I know, Season 2 content is probably going to be mostly rallycross content. So it'd be interesting to see what they do after the couple of seasons of their first DLC packs. So I don't know. I mean, people are pointing out the fact that they don't want to pay, or they shouldn't have to pay for content that's already been released in the original title. So there is a bit of controversy regarding this decision from Codemasters, but they're trying to move towards a game as a service, aren't they, Alan? So this is a start, I guess. It might not be the best way to start it, but it shows people the way they want to go in the future, I guess.
I mean, I can see both sides. I think if there had been, I can't help but feel that if there had been a few more rallies in there, or if this Season 1 was free content, and then Season 2 was a paid pass, I think it would be easy. It would be no problem. I think it's just the fact that the base game has a slightly disappointing amount of content in it, and you're being charged to pay for 3 rallies there that were in the previous game. Or I think, I don't know. Obviously, Monte Carlo and Germany was I don't know if Sweden was now, actually. My brain goes blank with all the games I played. But the reality is that there needs to be more, I think, free. I think a free package to have kicked it off would have been good and gone from there. But they've taken the strategy they have. And as I say, either way, I mean, if you have a season pass, you've got good content on the way to you. Can't argue with that. So there you go. Good cars. Could do a few more cars, mind you, but that's another thing entirely. So no, I'm rambling, aren't I? I'm rambling about Dirt Rally Roadmap. What do we have next? Driving an Aston Martin in Dirt Rally. Oh, goodness. I haven't looked at this, to be quite honest with you. But
yeah, it's on the site because it was unusual to see an Aston Martin in Dirt Rally 2. It's part of the GT class of cars. There's a few there. I think there's like a Ford Mustang, which I've driven. I've driven the Aston as well, and they're very unusual. I mean, they're GT4 racing cars on a rally track. You know, they're not supposed to be there, in my opinion. It's supposed to be on a purpose-built racetrack, but they are pretty tricky, as you can imagine, to drive on gravel and even on the wet tarmac and just tarmac itself. But they're there. I mean, it's interesting because it's different, I guess. So, you know, you can't turn your nose up at Co-Masters giving you a class that you wouldn't necessarily think of when it comes to rallying. So it's nice to have a sort of an oddball class thrown in there. You know, I'd like to see something else as well, like trucks or something as well, just for a bit of fun, you know, because just because it's a simulation doesn't mean we can't have a bit of fun as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's nice to have these addition to these cars. Yeah, it's funny actually when I went to a rally and I saw a Porsche rallying for the first time, it looks awesome. You know, it drives differently to the other cars, but it does look cool to see it there. And I like variety is the spice of life, as it were, when it comes to rally cars. Skipping from rally to NASCAR Heat 3, an update available for that as well. If you're playing NASCAR, don't know how many of you are in the UK, but they've been developing that series every year and moving on with it. They're certainly, obviously, big in America, not so big over anywhere else, frankly. Rocket League Friends update coming next week, or that'll be this week. Have you played it, Kevin?
I haven't actually used the Friends feature. I like to play solo against. I like to play the solo playlist, so you're basically playing against individuals rather than sort of parts of teams. But I must admit, I did actually get on Rocket League for the first time this year, last week, because I'm absolutely addicted to this game. So I figured I shouldn't really play it. But I did jump on last week and sort of become addicted again, if you like. But
I know
amazing game.
Yeah, when a game grabs you like that, I know the feeling.
But it's because it's the end of last season ended recently, so you get on there to try and improve your rank for the rewards at the end of the season. The new season now has kicked off, and I'm doing okay. I'm working my way towards champion tier, which is the second highest tier in the game. Above champion is grand champion, and they're like the best players in the world. But I'm never going to get there. Don't worry about that. I'm not kidding myself either. I just play it for fun. I don't get serious with it, and it's a fantastic team-based game. It's the best online game I've played. Basically, I think it sort of transcends football, and it's just a phenomenal game. It's one of those games that comes out once in a generation. That it's probably my game of the generation. Actually, I don't think anything else has consumed my time quite so much as Rocket League. So
I wish I could have. With Rocket League, I missed the boat when it was first released. Various things came up, and then when you miss that first sort of 6 months of playing a game, you've got such an uphill mountain to climb that it just feels like it's not even worth it. You just get annihilated by people, because
there's a good matchmaking system that puts you in with skilled players. So it works very well, actually. It's probably one of the best matchmaking systems I've ever seen. So there's lots of different tiers and such. So if you lose against a certain tier, more or less you're going to be put back. If you lose consistently, that is. So you eventually find your level. And the interesting thing with Rocket League is everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. Myself, I'm a goalkeeper, stroke defender. That's what I do. That's my role. That's what I used to do in football. I used to be defensive minded. That's my role. So I wouldn't necessarily have the flair or the shooting skills of an out and out forward. But what I would have is the defensive acumen that a lot of people don't have. So and when you get teams like that complement each other, it can be fantastic. But equally, you can have teams that clash. You can have overly defensive teams, which are quite a rarity, I might add. But often teams just gunning forward all the time. So with a player like myself, I can support those really forward-minded players just by hanging back and doing the sort of dirty, sloppy work, the boring work that no one wants to do. But I do enjoy that. So there's a nice sort of you can fit into a nice role in Rocket League. I think everyone has their place as long as your teammates are not getting onto you too much. I like to keep things chilled out. I like to encourage my teammates. If they say sorry for something, I always make sure I say no problem. I always apologize for my mistakes as well. So if you keep things civilized, you can have a really, really good, wholesome experience on Rocket League. But equally, if you come across some really foul-mouthed players, it's an off-putting experience. So you never quite know what you're going to get with Rocket League. But they have made strides, Psyonix, to introduce banning systems and such. But if you haven't played Rocket League, I would definitely recommend getting on there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Rocket League has grown enormously. The eSports is huge now in Rocket League as well. I mean, it amazes me how Rocket League eSports have grown. Just amazing. So
it's
Rocket League, sorry.
It's just a good spectator sport, isn't it? It's just so entertaining.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I love all the updates and different vehicles and, ideas they're bringing to it. It's great to see. That's good support for a game right there. That's it. It's a good model for support. But so that's it for Rocket League. Moving on then, we've got Barcelona has been added, Catalonia, to iRacing. And of course, if that circuit's being used intensively this week in the Formula One testing, it's a great circuit. It's a good test circuit. Long, challenging corners. Great to see that as an addition to iRacing as well. Building up on their sort of Formula One selection that they have in there. Eventually, you'll be able to run a full Formula One season, no doubt. Like they could do with remodeling Silverstone. I'm sure that must be on the agenda. They've not done that in 10 years. Next up, we have the DICE Awards, of course. And of course, DICE Awards, that's nominated. And Forza Horizon 4 won the Racing Game of the Year in the DICE Awards. As I say, quality game and receiving the awards. We've also got R Factor 2 original GT3 pack, adding new liveries and templates. Haven't been on R Factor 2 recently. I really do need to get on it. I want to see the sort of updates and graphical updates. Definitely at some point. I've got to get on there. I mean, with all the racing I'm doing now. Yeah.
This was an old GT3 pack because they recently released a new one. So they went back to the old one and actually sort of introduced a sort of new technology, if you like, to the old pack. So that was good to see. I mean, they're still obviously charging for that, but the fact that they went back and actually updated old DLC pack is very unusual to see, but it's very good to see at the same time. Yeah,
absolutely. And R Factor, as I say, I've got to get on there at some point. And obviously DLC, we've got V-Rally 4 has now added another car. A couple of cars actually in there as well. Have you managed to test those cars, Kevin? I don't know if we even have them yet. Do we have them? I don't know if we have them actually. Look into that.
I've been very much doing Dirt Rally 2 at the moment, so working on the review, which should be up on the site. Hopefully by the time you listen to this, it should be on the site, all going well. But yeah, they're introducing the odd new car to V-Rally 4. I think the first one was the full GT40. So very eclectic mix so far. This is a Pikes Peak vehicle, the latest one, Volkswagen IDR. Has 2 electric motors. I mean, it's just insane, this thing. But electric motors, not really my thing. You can't really hear them. So it's a big part of the thrill is gone when you're driving these electric cars. But I mean, something as bonkers as this.
Got to try that. Got to try. And now I can stream. I might try and stream the PC version as well. So we'll see from there. So that's V-Rally 4 news then. Electric cars. Look forward to testing those. I mean, I should get back on V-Rally at some point and check those out. But moving on, we have a Switch version of Grid Autosport coming this summer as well, which we've discussed a little while ago. And it's quite exciting in terms of Switch, in terms of racing games. It's a great game. Shame it wasn't converted for the current formats, really. A bit of a missed opportunity there. Shame it's only coming for the Switch, really. It would have been nice to have released an HD 60 FPS version for, the consoles. That would have been nice.
Yeah.
But,
I'm kind of hoping we've got a new Grid game coming up.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of content. Let's just hope that they release it with a serious amount of content in there as well. It's not half the game isn't behind a DLC wall. It's not a consistent thing. But yeah, Grid, we love a bit of Grid. I enjoyed Grid Autosport. Again, I should stream some of that sometime. What else have we got? Forza Horizon 4 Series 6 update out now. I haven't looked at this, Kevin. Can you tell us much about it?
Yes, I mean, they're releasing fairly big updates for Forza Horizon every so often. The latest one introduces a few little new elements. There's a new sort of story series, they're calling it, with extra events, and there's little extra cars and stuff. So as far as I know, it's not a massive update, this one. So it's just adding a few features here and there just to sort of keep the game content as fresh. But it's okay. I mean, there's nothing too exciting here to discuss really, but it's just more of the same really with Forza Horizon 4. Sort of updates coming every so often, keep things interesting. Of course, all the season changes every week as well, so there's always something new there, isn't there, every week for people to get on with, which is good to see.
Absolutely, it's nice to always see the developments. I guess they're going to have their next big update soon, aren't they? Like you say, since they always have sort of two major updates for Forza Horizon game. I guess around April time we can expect to see the next major DLC area planned. I don't really know what the plan is in terms of large new areas to explore, but they normally have that. But we look forward to that anyway, Kevin. And next we have Trials Rising Open Beta, which should be available this week. Or was that next week? It's next week. Again, I haven't really seen much of this. Don't really know a great deal about it. Have you looked into it, Kevin? What's it all about?
Well, no, I haven't seen a great deal on Trials Rising myself, actually. But I think the beta's this week, so people have been signing up since last week. But I don't know. It says 18 tracks, it says here. I mean, I don't know if that's enough, really. They do range in difficulty, but I don't know. I think it's trying to return to the sort of roots of Trials, it is, with 5 different bikes, whereas previously Trials of the Blood Dragon, you only had the one bike and introduced these platforming sections, and it sort of lost its identity, it's lost its way, and as a result, it wasn't too fondly thought of, that game. It had far too much run and gun shooting sections, which is so far removed from Trials, it's ridiculous. But they're trying to return to the roots now, and hopefully it will be a much better received title, because it needs to return to its roots to really capture the essence of what it was in the first place. But they seem to have quite a substantial DLC outline for the game as well, so there are some additional packs and stuff coming, so it'll be interesting to see how that all comes together. But yeah, as long as they return to the roots, I think Trials Rising should be a pretty decent game when it launches. When does it launch? It launches at the end of the month, doesn't it? In just a few days' time, actually. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how well this game is scored by the.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Ubisoft haven't shown us anything of this game yet, of course. And again, it's also very controlled. I mean, years ago, we used to be able to get previews on some of these games and get a hands-on, get a look at it. But these days, it's very controlled with the marketing, with the core famous YouTubers that they talk to, and that's it. And you can never really get an idea if a game is good or not until you actually get a hands-on and break it down a bit in terms of the structure. I mean, I love the original Trials HD. As I say, I felt they got better than worse, basically, and they need to recapture that. So we'll wait and see. Again, they probably want to turn Trials into an eSport now. So it seems standard what's happening.
I'd imagine so.
And I expect that's what this is all about: is making it a competitive sport. Next up is Dangerous Driving, released on PC through the Epic Games Store. Now, that's going to cause a few people to be frustrated. It's not releasing on Steam. It's a bit of a shame, really. I mean, for me, the fact you've got to register with the Epic Games Store, and you might not have ever bought a game from Epic, so they've released, obviously, Metro Exodus recently on there, but it's not like Steam, is it? I don't know why you'd... It's like saying we're only going to sell shredded wheat in Sainsbury's and not in Tesco's. Yeah, we're only going to sell Weetabix in Waitrose and not in Tesco's. You know,
Yeah.
what is wrong with selling a product in as many storefronts as possible? I think exclusivity of products to one store doesn't help that product unless they've been paid a bung to actually release it in that one store. You know, that seems like a missed opportunity to me. Are people going to register for Epic Games Store just to play dangerous driving? No, they're not.
No.
You need to put it in front of people for them to see it
Agreed.
and buy it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a huge marketing campaign behind it. And as I say, again, we've not had any contact with the developers, despite reaching out to them on their previous games as well. And, you know, you really, these days, even small developers need to be doing their PR and marketing, you know, getting it out there. I'm not certain that's the best strategy for them, but we wish them well, and we'll see how that works out for them on Epic Games Store. Moving on, we've got new Xenon Racer trailer looking at Miami and Tokyo. Have you had a quick look at that, Kevin?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, they've been releasing quite a few videos actually lately. One's gone up today as well, showcasing another couple of locations, countries. I think there's a total of 8, I believe it is. So they're releasing these what they call showcases, where they're showcasing 2 of the locations in each video. So we'll be seeing 2 more of these, no doubt, in you know, no time. But I'm very impressed with the locations. Actually, they do sort of capture that old school sort of Sega vibe. They have lots of pretty colors and interesting things going on by the track side, and it just captures that sort of 90s feel, sort of brought up to date though. It has that nice vibe about it.
Visually, I think the trailers have all looked very polished. Cars look cool,
Yeah.
graphics look shiny and nice. As I say, the jury's out on handling, isn't it? Does it play well? Can't honestly tell at the moment. Haven't seen anybody play it very well at all.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem, isn't it? So, you know, it looks nice in a trailer, but you know, until we play it, we won't know. I mean, for me, obviously, it's an arcade game, but is it fun arcade handling? Just can't tell you. That's something we're going to have to keep an eye out for. What do we have next up? We've got car mechanic simulator coming to Nintendo Switch of all formats. That's a bit of a surprise. But yet the Switch somehow seems like the perfect format for it in a way.
Yeah, I mean they've updated some of the features in this game to make it easier to navigate using the Switch controls and stuff. So it's not just a port, it's actually, you know, it's sort of reconstructed certain elements. So it's a proper port, if you like, for Switch. So yeah, it's good to see games like this coming out on the Switch. We're seeing it more and more sort of racing games and driving and driving related games coming out on the Switch. So it's good to see. But I think there's a rumor actually of Car Mechanic coming out on the PlayStation 4 later this year as well. So we'll have to look into that. But yeah, it's just another simulation game coming to the console market, which was, you know, an area traditionally reserved for the PC market. So we're seeing it more and more now, aren't we?
We are, and it's good. It's good to see things moving around, and it's great that the developers are getting opportunities to release their games on formats such as Nintendo formats, which has never been entirely straightforward to release a game for in that way. It's not necessarily traditionally what you would find on a Nintendo system, which is good news because it gives you a bit more sort of range in terms of what's available. We've got the TV. So moving on, we've got Dirt Rally 2's TV ad, Rise to the Challenge. So goodness knows you will need to rise to the challenge because Dirt 2 is hard as nails, I tell you. Wow, we've had the launch trailer for Dirt 2, which launch trailer almost seems a bit early, doesn't it, really? I don't know. Launch isn't for a week or so yet if you're buying the standard version, but it's also 2 days before the actual digital launch as well. But there you have it, launch trailer before launch. MX versus ATV All Out Anniversary Edition coming in March. What's that all about, Kevin?
Yeah, so it's basically the 1 year anniversary of MX versus ATV All Out. So they're coming out with a special edition which bundles not all the DLC, but the best DLC, it says here. So that's interesting straight away. But yeah, it's more or less the same, just with the sort of packs. You got a Ricky Carmichael pack, you got the Slashes Snake Pit pack, and MX Nationals pack as well as 14 additional tracks, it says here, as well as all the other content from the game itself, including the private compound and the open environments that featured. So it's just I guess it's for those that didn't buy the DLC or the game the first time round. So just a nice package here. It's £25, 99 on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Comes out middle of March as well. So if you didn't buy the game or the DLC, or the DLCs or the game, I should say, that way around, it's a good opportunity to sort of dive in and sample what the best of what the game has to offer for a reasonable price. I must say though, on launch, I wasn't impressed with MX versus ATV.
No.
It was very the frame rate was appalling.
Rough as old boots.
So I'm not sure how far it's come since then. I will get back on the game shortly and see how it has improved, because it was it was pretty rough for sure.
Yeah. What do we got next? Truck Driver in final stages of development. Kevin, tell us about that.
Yeah, so they released a sort of developer diary. The CEO of the development team actually discussed the latest status of the game. Truck Driver is a truck driving sim, of course, and it's another sim that's coming to consoles. So it's we're seeing an awful lot of these lately, but it's an exciting time for console owners, because we've had to sort of sit and look at people on the PC playing these games, and with sort of green eyes of envy. But now finally, a truck driving game is finally coming to the consoles. Hallelujah! And it's not going to be on the level of Euro Truck, of course. They don't have the resources, but it's still going to be a lot of fun and something that we've been sorely missing from the console market. Truck driving sim. The developers have said that the map is not exactly expansive, but it does have a good sort of range of diversity in the landscapes and buildings and such. So I guess you could view it as a sort of mini Euro Truck Simulator, a limited version of that, and I guess you wouldn't be too disappointed. But I'm excited for this title. I'm excited to see what they can do with it, and it's just so novel to get a game such as this on the consoles. So again, it's a step forward for the console market in terms of providing these simulation games from all different walks of all different driving aspects and mechanical stuff. And there's more and more out there, and I'll be featuring some more simulation based titles on the website as well in the future. So do check out the website for even more news on upcoming simulating titles. But it's very much seems to be the year of the simulations coming to the consoles.
Yeah, I think it's another good step. A bit more variety.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get more of the Euro Truck and American Truck simulators coming and stuff like that in due course. I mean, maybe we'll get that maybe on the next gen as well.
Yeah,
especially as the power of the consoles and the processing improves and is able to run these sims. Next up, we'll move on to obviously Grip. A couple of new tracks coming to Grip there. So we'll see. Both always looks very impressive, very polished. And of course, we'll finish with some big news, actually. Codemasters signed an eSport partnership with Motorsport Network, which is big news.
It is,
with for Codemasters and for Motorsport Network. This is a big deal. This really ties them in with the motor industry. And it'll be interesting to see where this goes with them working together now, because it's going to change things. If Motorsport Network start to run their own leagues and everything else, it connects the motor industry to the games industry there. I think there's a lot of potential for this agreement. So I would keep a close eye on that. Is big news, isn't it? Big news.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in the statement they said that Dirt Rally 2 will be the first beneficiary of this agreement. So we're going to expect a pretty big esports campaign for Dirt Rally 2, but it's only the first in a line of Codemasters titles. It says here key owned IP titles, which I took as a possible hint to a Grid sequel in the future. That's just the way I sort of what I took away from that. So if we are to have a Grid sequel in the next year or two, you can expect again a massive esports push with that game, as well as other key titles from Codemasters. So Formula One is another one, of course. So yeah, it's good. It puts Codemasters in the right position to compete against the other guys currently running their own campaigns and stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see how far they can go with esports, because it is very much in vogue at the moment, isn't it?
It is. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's doing it. Everyone's trying to make a business out of it. Nobody really knows what they're doing, frankly. It's all a bit all over the place. It really is. Nobody really knows how to make money. When you say, how to make money out of eSports, how does it work? Nobody really knows. Everybody's pouring money into it, and nobody really knows how many people are watching it. And there's no governing bodies. There's no structure. There's nothing. It's a mess out there at the moment. Everybody's doing it, and they're trying to do it on their own. You know, Formula One are doing their own, WRC doing their own, MotoGP's doing their own. Who are the players that won it last year? Who are the players? I couldn't even tell you their names. Can't tell you the names of half the people in it. And I think it's got a long way to go. But I think with Motorsport Network combining with Codemasters, that's only a good thing if a structure's eventually put into place. And who knows, everybody might learn everything or something, and they can put something together. But in many respects, esports haven't moved forward in 10 years. They say they have. Oh, they make a lot more newspapers now. You know, there's a lot more news about them. There's bigger prize pots. But fundamentally, things are the same as they've always been. And there's still a long way to go to see how that all improves. It's very interesting times in terms of esports, and I'll be keeping a close eye on that, and we'll see how it goes. But I think that's it for the core news, Kevin. Do we have any questions?
We do, yes. Let's start with Twitter. So Adam asks opinions of the DLC of Dirt Rally 2, and are the locations going to stay in the game permanently?
Well, the locations also, well, I mean, they're in this game. You know, I don't think you can speak for the future of the Dirt Rally franchise, but one would expect that Dirt Rally 3, in theory, should contain everything from Dirt Rally 2, shouldn't it? Not when you buy Dirt Rally 3, you're going to have half of Dirt Rally 2 in there, and you're going to have to buy the other half of Dirt Rally 2, as well as what's new in Dirt Rally 3.
Unless, of course, if Dirt Rally 3 comes out on the next gen consoles, then
which is likely. Yeah.
Then, you know, perhaps they won't carry over assets because they'll have such fantastic technology in place that they have to rebuild from scratch because it's going to be so impressive that they don't need to include assets from older titles, you know?
Exactly. I think I don't know. We'll wait and see, Kevin. Wait and see.
Yeah, so Tony says, is it worth getting the deluxe version of Dirt Rally 2? And what do we think of the daily challenges?
What do we think of data? Always good fun. Always good fun. Love daily challenges. I don't know if there's a scoreboard or something you get for winning. I don't really know.
Yeah, there are in-game cash prizes.
That's good. Yeah, I think it's a positive to have something to keep people coming back to the game for sure.
One thing I like about them is they're one-shot challenges. So once you compete in them, that's it. I remember I quitted out of the rally, forgetting it was actually a daily, and ended up getting ranked at the bottom of the leaderboard. I thought, I kicked myself, you know.
Really?
I
didn't know that. I didn't know that when I did it. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like a one-shot thing. So yeah, it's very much a good challenge to see where you rank up against other players on just one run. You know, that really sort of separates the men from the boys, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It's already competitive as well on there.
Yeah,
surprisingly.
Yeah, well, there's a few times on there for sure. Yeah, I was one of the higher ones on there. So,
but well, of course, people. Kevin, I'd expect nothing less.
Exactly. Yeah, I may have crashed once, but yeah. Okay. So Revenger asks, what do we think on the discourse surrounding the sim versus arcade racing games and the toxicity that surrounds simcade games from the hardcore sim community?
Well, you know what? Years ago, it was SNES is better than Mega Drive, or Sonic is better than Mario, or Mortal Kombat is better than Street Fighter, or whatever it is. You're always going to get these two sides. Now you've got arcade and sim racing. What's superior? Nothing is better or superior than the other. It just depends on the style. Do you like rock music or classical music? It really is what's your bag. And it's as simple as that. Really. I do see some of these silly comments sometimes that, physics are bad because the controller works well with it. What a stupid comment that is, really. I mean, the fact is that if you can get a real car to handle well with a controller, great. There's nothing wrong with the physics. It's got nothing to do with the physics. And I do feel that people get confused with physics quite often as well. It's like that's why I don't use the term simcade. I use the term assisted sim, because there's a lot of arcade games that actually have sim physics.
I mean, Gravel is
And
one good example of a recent game that has depth to the handling that's based on real world physics.
exactly. And I look at it and I just think, that's it. It's, I don't know. I feel it.
I see
People get
people writing,
confused. Yeah.
they write that they've grown out of arcade racing games, and I just feel, how can you grow out of arcade?
Grown out
playing
of
a
that.
racing,
When I was a boy.
playing a racing sim doesn't mean you're mature or grown up or sophisticated. It's very much why pigeonhole yourself? Why disclude a large area of the racing genre just because you feel it's the right thing to do? You've outgrown arcade games. I mean, it's nonsense. Absolutely nonsense.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? There is this superiority mentality that
It's a
some
macho
sim
thing,
racers
isn't it, as
have.
well?
If you don't have a wheel, you're not a real sim racer. No, listen, racing games are better to play with a wheel. They're more fun. But if you don't have a wheel, you can still enjoy it with a controller. I didn't have a wheel for years because I didn't have anywhere to put one. They take up a lot of space and they're a bit of a pain in the stock, put away basically and store away. So, admittedly, I've got 16 steering wheels sitting here now, so it's a bit of a problem. But I mean, it's it is an issue in terms of, obviously we're testing different wheels out from time to time on different games and all that. And goodness me, changing over the wheel is a hassle. People were saying to me the other day, "Why are you using an F1 wheel on the rallying over and over and over again?" I knew that it was going to come. But the reality is that changing your wheel hub over can be a massive pain, basically, just to do one game for one session. So it's nice, actually, that they both have the option of different rims you can put on there and change that, So I certainly have the full selection from Thrustmaster there to change all that. But I'm not changing my rim at the moment because I'm doing this Gran Turismo Nations Cup and I don't want to change my setup while I'm sort of in the zone, as it were. Better to change it over and start a new championship at some point. I think there is just a silliness often. And when you ask people about physics, I mean, like we said before, people are judging physics on a replay model, for example. That's so silly, so silly. No, it's got no idea how it all works. And I think people just want to say something to sound knowledgeable, or and I've spoken to racing drivers about it over the years that said to me, some sims out there, some hardcore sims, rubbish the way the cars handle. They're way easier to drive than the simulation would have you believe. And I think it's the same for Dirt Rally at times. There are some of those cars in there, I don't believe they're anywhere near as difficult because if they were that difficult to drive, drivers would be falling off the track all the time. And they don't. The cars are much more stable than they appear. So in terms of physics, and are we nearly there yet? No, I think we've got a long way to go.
I agree.
The perception of sim racers, some of them, is quite limited, and what they expect and what their version of reality is. And their version of reality is it's got to be so difficult that only a few people can actually play it. That's their version of reality. And the reality is that not that difficult to drive, but it's really difficult to maximize the minute details that make you quicker than everybody else. That's the hard part.
Exactly.
So it's an ongoing argument. It will continue forever.
Yes. Okay, final question is from Boris, who asks, have we heard anything on the GTR 3 project? I know Simbin recently put a tweet out there that they've moved into a new office, basically, and they're getting on with the developments, but we haven't heard any official announcements for a while now. We expect the game to come out this year. It's a bit worrying because it is so quiet. They did put out something over Christmas just to let people know it was still coming, but the fact that they still haven't really given us anything noteworthy is a little bit worrying, I have to say. But I'm expecting to see something within the next 4 weeks. If I don't see something in the next 4 weeks, I do worry about them actually trying to release a game this year. But it's supposedly it's going to be slightly watered down, I guess, from a hardcore racing sim that the first two were. So it'd be interesting to see what they do to it. But I guess you could think of it as somewhere along the lines of a Project Cars 2 sort of title, I guess. But we've yet to see it in action, so we know very little about it. It's on the Unreal Engine 4. We've seen some screenshots which look pretty enough, but in terms of real details, it's pretty thin on the ground, isn't it, so far? So no doubt we'll see a lot more in the coming weeks, I imagine.
Yeah. So GTR 3, definitely one to look forward to. Is it going to be the new Race Pro for consoles? That's the thing.
Yeah.
It potentially could be. And the market is still quite open. No, there's not as much out there as you would think in terms of solid sim racing titles on the consoles. So, that's hence I'm busy playing through Gran Turismo still at the moment and awaiting more content to be coming up for that. Gran Turismo, really could do with a few more tracks at the moment. That's the thing, sort of letting it down a bit. There's loads out there that they could add. It's Polyphony will have to wait and see what their future plans are. Maybe they'll have some announcements at E3. Who knows? Certainly, it could do if they could do with adding a bit more to GT Sport at the moment, including some old classics. But that's a conversation for another day. So that's all the news for this week. Thanks for that, Kevin. Thanks for all your questions, viewers, as well. And there's been a lot to catch up. And as I say, the intention is to run this every week. And then eventually we'll be able to be a lot more consistent in terms of what we're going on about and getting your questions as well. But that's it from me and Kevin for now. Hope you've enjoyed this little jovial chat, rush through the news, and there'll be more from us very soon.